Now we need to regenerate our client API because we made changes and added a new endpoint, right? So simply right click on the client app folder, open in terminal, and now as always run the npx ng -openapi -gen command. So npx ng openapi -gen, and that should actually update our client API. And you can see road book DTO flight service, and inside of that flight service we will now have our book flight endpoint. Now we need to post the book flight form to the server, and we will also use the current user email which the user has registered with. So this is why we needed the user to be registered. Because in the end, if you want to make a flight booking, you want to know which user, so which email address, for example, booked which flight and how many seats. And for sure, we could be able to simply go ahead and in a moment where you book a flight, also say what's your email address. But later on, you might be interested in adding a functionality for registration. And that's a huge step forward, which we made. I mean, actually, it's not saved in a database, and passwords are not compared, for example, right? But it's a huge preparation for a later step. Now move to the book flight component.ts. So open client app folder, book flight component.ts. And inside here we now use our auth service that we got right here, and we already got it covered inside of the constructor. So go into the book method that we have just created right here, and now we will use it. So let's extend the functional code here. Const booking is equals to a new object, flight ID equals to this dot flight.id, passenger email. I guess you can see that we are talking here about the book DTO, right? This dot auth service dot current user, check if it's null, if not take the email, number of seats, this dot form dot get number, again null check, dot value. So this will in the end be our book DTO because we got the flight ID, the passenger email from our auth service from the current user, very important, right? So the user needed to be registered in order to book a flight, so we got that email, and number of seats from the form. Great. Now let's finally call that endpoint, this dot flight service dot book flight. There we go. That one got created when we updated our client API. Let's send in the booking. You can see it's matching, right? Booking. Now subscribe to it again. This time we again run a function, an arrow function, console.log, succeeded. And we for sure wanna console log the errors. Now you can see that error here. And if you want to know what's the issue, you can go ahead and instead of leaving it like const booking, you can see the data type is not matching. Say it's type of book DTO to see where the issue is. Book DTO. There we go, book DTO. And now we will see, okay, flight ID, he doesn't know that, so flight ID. Same will go for passenger email. Same will go for number of seats. Now, afterwards, you can see that he's still complaining, so hold the cursor above it. Type book DTO has no properties in common with type body book DTO undefined. So what we do is we create a new object here inside that, and we say body is equals to booking. So now we fixed all the issues. Okay, I wanted to show you how to fix these errors because I want you to get confident enough to handle those Angular errors on your own later on, especially when it comes to TypeScript. Let's save it like this. And now let's test our whole process again. So go ahead into the flight controller. There we go, flight controller, and set the breakpoint here in booking. So just in that line of code, for example, where we console log it, right? Go ahead and start the application using the debugger mode. And now let's go through the whole process. So here we are at home. Let's search for a flight. That sounds nice here. Take the book flight. Now we need to register. Let me enter some values. Afterwards, click on login. You can now search again, but we are signed in the background. So book again. Now I can book the flights. Let's say 10 seats. Let me hit book. Our breakpoint should be activated now. In the DTO, you can see flight ID and number of seats and email address. So all the information that we want to have are now got sent from Angular to our RESTful API backend. That's perfect. Now let's continue with that. Let's refresh the page here. And now we again have to log in. So jl@dev.com, that was the one I was using. It's still recognized in the background, but every time we want to book a flight here, we have to sign in, right? So we have to adjust this user flow of the pages a little bit so that it makes a little bit more sense, right? Because when I here go ahead and click on search for the very first time and then register, and then I get sent back to search flights again. So we want to adjust that flow to make it a little bit easier for the user and a little bit less confusing, but that's not a problem at all. First of all, focus on the functionality and then on the user experience. Great, so now let's move on.